Stone Teachings number 4, series of videos I've done on coming to this new place, Nanaimo, BC, as I just moved here 7 months ago. And I've been doing several projects with stones, which are everything from cliffs, mountains, all part of the mountain here. We really live on stone, very closely to the sea and on the edge of this mountain coming down to the ocean. Quite an unusual place for me to live compared to many other places I've been. So I feel this very thin soil here in that sense, and rock exposed in many places. So I think it's all influenced my artwork, my philosophy, my educational thinking, and this project that I'm involved in right now. It's wrapping up. That's the Nanaimo Innovation Academy, which is a daycare, now kindergarten, going into grade 1, 2 next year as a school, private school, nonprofit school. And I'm working closely with them as an educational consultant and artist in residency. That's the main thing of these stone teachings. I'm giving some little insights that I get, and some quite big insights, quite deep, quite extensive, in terms of how I think about young children, for example, education of young children, the socialization process itself of societies, and the whole problem and issues of daycare itself, which I haven't gone into in these video series, but it's always there. It's always sitting there. So today I want to focus on something I'm calling Not Just a Stone. And that comes from an exchange I've had with one of the care workers at the Nanaimo Innovation Academy, Kazoo. And I have had these lot of deep intuitions about my own working with 7 months, very intensely close physical contact with the stone pile that I brought on the campus in the parking lot. And I've worked with as a sculpture, as a site, as a public, social, engaged art project. And so a few things this morning will come out in the video, but I just logistically, just to tell you, I'm at the end of the residency. Just got a little bit of PR here that shows me working at the stone pile with one of the arts reporters here for the local newspaper, wrote an article, and that was nice to get yesterday. And then today, I'm just going to be setting up my art exhibit at the Nanaimo Academy. And that will be some of the children's art, my art, some mix of the children's art and my art. And that will all come together in an interesting exhibition, I think, and hopefully lots of people come by to visit us this weekend. And also it's a fundraiser, so if you're watching this video at all or know anybody that to come and visit this art exhibit, it's anything you purchase is, as far as I'm concerned, it's a gift. Just as I'm gifting the art, just as the stones have gifted to me in being in this environment, which I feel deeply supported by the stones, the Mother Earth, nature, and then having to then bring that into culture, into even the spiritual world, natural, cultural, spiritual. I'm very interested in the integration of all those, a holistic, integral perspective. But I'm doing that as an artist, philosopher, educator, as I said earlier. And so I do all kinds of things. I reflect and think a lot about the stones. So here's a latest. I picked a stone, from the pile of probably millions of stone. I actually picked one and drew it. A quick sense of the drawing in ink, just with the pen. It's a lovely stone, and there it is itself. It's difficult to working with a pile of stones when you get the dump truck and dumped it on the ground. And as I say, I've been sculpting the whole pile for the most part. And sure, I pick out some stones once in a while. They catch my eye. Somebody talks about them. Maybe a child picks one out. And so you do get a little particularity, but for the most part, I've been really dealing mostly with the whole of the pile and not individual stones. Now remember, these are all fractured stones. They're manufactured for human purposes, for very functionalist, commodified purposes. And that's one of the things I don't like, and I have to deal with aesthetically, that these stones come from, a crushing and a blowing up dynamiting process, digging up nature for probably building roads and houses, expansion of their humans, encroachment again on so much of the earth to such an excess. It's quote really disgusting what we've done as a species in that excessiveness. Not that we shouldn't be here, and it's not that we shouldn't build houses, it's not that we shouldn't build roads. It's just how much and how unsacredly we do that, and how that affects our bond with nature, and that's our bond with ourselves and our communities of all beings here. So this is a great disruption. So these stones, as beautiful as that stone is in its own way, yes, it is, and it's I call it the pointed stone, but it's an arrow head-like stone, feels like, but naturally, and I don't think it's been touched or carved. It's just almost at random, right? That these stones are fractured under great pressure and power by machines, and some of them come out, I guess, sort of resiliently with their own beauty and dignity. And that's very much a lot about what the pile of stones that I'm working with is about, is a reclamation of their dignity, my dignity, and a restoration process, even a memorial, as I've said about this art installation, and I have called it that. I'll be sharing a link later on this video of an exhibition out at Lakehead University in their art gallery there. I've had a great supporter, Pauline Sanashina, there, and she will be curating the show, and I will be linking that here so you can go and look at some of the photographs of what I've done in the last 5 months. Of course, it's such a small sample. And there's just been so many things come out of this artist residency. When you walk in as an artist into an artist space like a studio, you kind of have certain confines, certain amount of materials that you work with. Maybe you purchase a few more or find a few more, right? Even found objects, etc., and you work with them. But when you walk into an organization like this, like 20 plus staff, faculty, infrastructure, and then it's in the community itself, surrounding it in the city. And I'm working out very directly in the environment of nature and all its inputs. I've got nature, I've got the huge, larger community, I've got the daycare center focus, all the parents coming and going, kids dropping off, going, classrooms going on, and then my own life, just in my own experiential life here in this area as well, because I live only a couple blocks away from the daycare center school. And all of that, plus my 70 years of living on this planet nearly, and all the reading and thinking and experiences, everything is going into this art residency. So I guess you get that idea. So my medium, what's your art medium, Michael? Well, in the residency, everything. Yeah. So that's, yes, I'm drawing a stone here. I'm being very particular with the stone. And one of the main story I want to tell in this video, which is this exchange with Koze, one of the care workers at the Nanaimo Academy, who was at a professional development day with me. And you can see I've got the stone in my hand here, warming it up, and the stone stoning me up. I'm gripping something to the stone, handing to the stone, and it's stoning back to me through the hand in its integrity of form, and my hand form now in a co-forming and even transforming experience. Not one event. That's why I'm connecting the story now with this daycare worker, which kind of goes like this. So no start and no ending here. I'm giving you a very brief representation of what's going on, which is quite exciting artistically and pedagogically, from the point of view of the work that we do with children here at the Nanaimo Innovation Academy. And hopefully this is an experiment and process of how arts comes into education, art as experience. As John Dewey wrote his book in 1926, which I've just got a copy and I'm beginning to just look at as an educational philosopher. So I will be writing more about this, doing more videos on stone teachings. But here's the stone teaching for today. So in the beginning, as they say at one point, I am in charge of, this is true, given responsibility to facilitate the first professional development day while I'm at the residency for the staff. So one of the days children don't come, right? And then the professionals get a chance to do their development work and exchange with each other and learning as professionals. And I call them professional motherers at the daycare centers. That's my label. And yes, they're mostly females identified. So anyway, I'm the male, and I come in and I'm working with them it's a really rainy day, but I want to take them out to the stone pile with the sculpture that's been there for, a couple months now at that point, and not a lot of interaction with staff and the children with the stones, a little bits here and there. And that's just because many factors why that's happening. It's another story. So I take the staff out to the pile. We do a little ceremony. I do a little performance with a timing clock, electric digital time clock in the stones, and I bury the clock with the stones. Not going to go into that. But eventually I say, okay, we've been out here half an hour, it's pouring rain. I wanted to take you on a little tour around the area that I've been investigating, some other stones and some other wild areas that we can walk to right very close within a block in all directions around the academy. And I'm trying to expand the conceptual map here, right? For the staff, when they come to work, where are you? Where are you coming? That's the kind of awareness. Just like as an artist, when I come there and work on the stones, I go, where am I coming from? Where am I now? Where am I belonging? What's happening? What wants to happen? Where is this going? Where is this stone taking me? Not just me taking the stones. So that's a really important teaching, that co-mutuality, that co-potentiality of interaction, the transformative possibilities of a relation with all beings. And yeah, it's animistic in a way too. It's a paradigm of animizing, animating, you name it, animation of relations with objects, with found objects. In this case, the stones was a found object. Many of them, millions. So I get the staff to pick out at least one stone, right? Because we've been meeting, we're all standing around in the rain. You just got to imagine this. And we're having, and I'm giving a little bit of talk, and this is our professional development day. And, they were gracious. They hung in there with me, dripping wet. And yeah, sure, we had rain suits on, but it's just like really cold, rainy day. And then when they pick a stone, I said, well, we'll go inside. I was going to take you on a tour, but now we're going to do the tour in our imagination. Okay. So that was great. Went in, they all had a stone. And I didn't ask them what to do with it. They could keep it in their hand, in their pocket, beside them. in their purse, wherever they wanted to keep it. And I didn't check that out or anything. And so then I took them on a guided walk, um, and with their stone, going to these 3 locations. Again, much longer story I can't go into here. So Koze, who's an experienced daycare worker at Nanaimo Innovation Academy, and I don't know all of her career, but eventually she told a story after at the next PD day of her experience. She shared a little of her experience at that professional development day from doing this visualization with me, and how important she realized the stone was that she had picked. She realized how important the stone is for children. And again, I'm making a long story very short here, truncating all the details and the beauty of it, just for timing of the purposes of this teaching here, to get to the point eventually and very quickly. She shared, how she was impacted to, and this is the line that hit me when I'm sitting there listening as a facilitator, and she says to the group, the group was quite captivated by her sharing, and she gets their attention quite well. She's obviously got a lot of respect as a great care worker. And she says, I now have a relationship with the stone. Quote. For an adult, right, in today's world of all the things and all the distractions and all the addictions, and not all bad, but all the things that we're encounter and have to manage and have to seek, or we seek because we want them for pleasure or whatever, power, fame, fortune. I now have a relationship with the stone. So anyway, a couple of weeks later, I said, Koze, could you write that up? And the pedagogista Antage, who also works part-time and works with me at the Stone Pile, we've been forming a new relationship as pedagogist and artist, talierista type peoples that we are. We love how the arts impact education and early childhood education. And Koze writes a story. She took the inspiration from the event of the experience she had with the stone and what she shared there that PD day, and then she wrote it, right, and reflected. It's called pedagogical narrative. And then she took that, and I asked her to publish it on this website that we're now using for our organization, a private one that we can share as staff and keep the narratives going and the learning to enhance the caregivers, the teachers, experience of teaching and being with children and being with ourselves as a community building process and the self-reflective learning. Right? So it's called staff development. In simple terms, human development and curriculum development. Anyway, the story that she wrote has had quite an impact, because it also connected to her son, who was watching her writing the story at home about the stone, and realizing the essence of her story, which I can barely do justice to, is that she realized that when children have come to the daycare center many times, over the years, she's sometimes noticed they'll have a stone in their hand and they don't want to let it go. Now, sometimes they'll have another object, different kind of object, that they bring from home as well. Sometimes a leftover piece of cereal, or whatever from their home. And what Koze realized is that this is so important to the children, and when we sometimes the parent or the staff might try to get it out and force them to give it up for whatever reasons, right? So that they can carry on their day and not be always having this object in their hand. Or maybe something dirty, or who knows what the problem is, why the adult doesn't want the child to be carrying this precious object. Because I realized her experience when I have a relationship with the stone, quote, now, that she realized she hadn't always handled situations well over the years or seen other staff and faculty, not just at this place, but at other places perhaps, or even just in the regular world at home, and families, and in going to the lake or wherever. Okay, put the stone down, we got to eat now, or whatever the case may be. We treat the stone as if it's just a stone, or the object as just an object. And so we objectify the experience of that child as having gripped in hand with the world. And not just the world, in this case, with nature. In the sense, everything's part of nature. If I put a pencil in my hand, which is likely what I would have kept as a toddler in my hand, I love pencils, pens, crayons, chalks, things for marking. That I'm a visual artist is from all of that fetish I have with these objects. I would add a small pencil in my hand. And I recently just scanned a photograph of that, put it up on the blog, my hand with a pencil. I said, if I was a toddler, I wouldn't have probably had a stone. Maybe I would have, but I really would have had probably a pencil, little pencil or something. And so I had the realization in going through this artistic process myself of putting the pencil in my hand, scanning it, journaling, thinking about Koze's story of the hand gripping children and how sometimes we'll force it out of them and they're screaming and crying. They don't want to let it go. Whatever that object is. Maybe it's a toy, yeah, often, or a doll, right? Or some part of a doll. And the big realization from Koze was this is not just a rock. This is not just a stone. This is not just a whatever the object is that we name it arbitrarily, quite arbitrarily for the most part. See what I'm saying? That's where the animistic spiritual connection of the child, this deep psychic bond and attachment the child has, as we all have. We're all children, just like we were attached to our mom and we wanted to put our mom in our hand if we could have. So we put our breast in our mouth if we could. And we're lucky enough and fortunate enough to have such an experience. But in some way, maybe we wanted her hair, maybe we wanted her dress, her shoe, her earring, or maybe it was something dad had and we wanted that. So this attachment to objects is a really important part of object relations psychology, psychodynamics. I won't go into that, but it's much more than that. And you can see I'm coming from the perspective also as an artist first. So Koze had written this story. She's now told it to some of the early childhood workers in this area. People are very touched by her story, her realization of how important this object is. And then she told the latest story was that her son, while she was writing the story, asked about the stone. Koze was telling him about it, about 6-year-old, and eventually he took her stone after she was finishing and she obviously didn't pursue it too much, but he took it and he's got a part of whatever he wanted, and she doesn't know where that stone is anymore. And recently she just wrote that her husband tried to give her another stone perhaps that she could use when she gives her talks, her latest talk, and that it wasn't the right stone, it didn't feel right. And then Koze realized, yeah, like if I'm a little toddler, I want the right stone. I want my stone. I want the one that I had. It's no substitute, you see. Yeah, it all gets very interesting. So then the realization I had with playing with my imaginary and actually doing the performance of holding a pencil, scanning it, and then writing a blog with that photograph image, I began to realize in just the whole picture, as I think Koze was starting to move toward in her realization as she pursues processing this pedagogical narrative of this stone, we'll call it. Did you realize, as I realized, the object is me, not ego level, stone equals me, not that level of self equals stone, stone equals self, myself. No, not quite, that language doesn't capture what the phenomenon that I'm trying to get to here today is about. And rather the experiencing the stoning coming to me, the handing, going to the stones, and that building of a relationship. That's what that is. It's the gift that the stone is there and that I am here and that now we are some kind of we are some kind of interbeing, as Thich Nhat Hanh might say, the mystical Buddhist monk, that we are not just human beings, we are interbeings here having an experience with others. That's the gist of the story, folks. Thanks for tuning in. As Jose and I wrote her back on her latest story just on the blog and said, I guess a stone is not a stone. That's what she said. And I have been playing with during the residency quite a bit. Again, much larger story I can't go into. With these cardboard boxes that fold up, children can play with them. I've had the faculty work with these boxes, coloring, drawing on them, and then taking them apart, putting them together. And then one point I wrote on the inside lid of one of the boxes that I put together, a small little thing. I said, not a box. Well, artists have been playing with this, philosophers have been playing with this idea for some time. I can't quote the artists who have done this, but it was kind of a meme, artistic cultural meme going around for a while. The artist would put a picture of a toilet seat or put it in the gallery and put a sign, not a toilet seat. And the idea there, obviously, right, is deconstructing our way we objectify through language and words and nouns, thingization of the planet and all the things happening. We're so caught up in our language, particularly Indo-European languages and contemporary languages, of this thingingness, making things commodities that we can name, measure, sell, and create the value around that naming the objects. And then the whole critique coming from artists, coming from philosophers, and coming from cultural studies in many areas now today, and artists. This big critique of, well, what is our relationship with the world? These happenings that I'm describing is all about happenings, experiencing. And so art is no longer just about representing and painting and putting an object as a sculpture, for example. Me dumping the stones and saying, oh, I'm a sculptor and I'm making a sculpture. And that's what people come and they talk to me and they say, oh, what's your latest sculpture? And I realize, that's so little of what I'm doing. That's like one grain of the actual experiencing of what's going on in the happening and process, if you will, the adjectives and the verbing of the experience of my relations. Thank you to the Stone Teachings for today. Thank you for you being here and watching this, and maybe share it with some other people if you think it'll be interesting. Stone Teachings. We'll see you again next time.